Hello, welcome back to another video tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. I'd like to do a tutorial today on watermarks, their intended purpose, and how to create a good watermark versus a poor watermark. And to begin with, I want to start off with a story of an experience that I had. Several months ago, I was contacted by a fella who wanted to use some of my images in his business, and he prints digital images on, I guess it's printable canvas, and frames them and uses them as office art or very contemporary art. And he emailed me and wanted some of my images. So I had sent him several of my images that I had uploaded to Renderosity, the same ones that anyone can view at Renderosity. Those are what I had sent him to see if those were indeed the ones that he wanted. And the reason why I sent him those is because, well, essentially I wasn't giving him anything that he couldn't already obtain on his own, so I wasn't overly concerned with protecting those images, so I didn't watermark them. He said that he liked some of my images and that he wanted some full-size ones, and that he would be sending me a contract to sign, a legally binding contract to protect myself and my work. And after about a week or so, I emailed him back, "Hey, where's that contract?" He says, "Well, send me the images and I'll send you the contract." So he wanted the full-size, full-resolution images. So, okay, I took those images into Photoshop and I put some watermarks on them and I sent them off to him, and I never heard from him ever again. It was as though he dropped off the face of the earth and disappeared forever. And when he realized that he wasn't going to get my images for free, he lost all interest, and I'm sure he went out and started contacting someone else who would give him what he wanted. And over the years, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of images online, and many people watermark their images, and I have always been struck by how poorly the watermarks have been. And I want to show you typically what I see for a watermark. Someone will take a word, watermark, or their own name or whatever their copyright that they put on their images, and they'll just lower the opacity a little bit and put it in a spot that they think is going to not cover up the scene but somewhat protect it and make the watermark visible at the same time. Well, something like this I've seen many times, and I have to say that yes, they have created a watermark, but they have created a watermark that offers zero protection. And I say that because it is very easy to defeat and remove a watermark like this. The reason why is, and I'm not going to get into removing a watermark, that would seem it would run counter to the purpose of this tutorial, but I will say this, and that is, to remove a watermark you can either use your cloning tools or your spot healing brush, and another way is to simply select the area that has been watermarked. So if this was my image that I wanted to protect, well, for one, all I have to do is use the exact same font, size it up, make it the same size as the watermark that's on the image, and it may take a little playing around with, but you get the idea. And so all I have to do is create a selection of this text that I just created, And let me see if I can do that. Create selection from this. Maybe I'll just, there we are. Now that I'm on the digital image, I have just created a selection of the watermark, and then I can deviously begin getting rid of it. And that is not the best way to protect your work. So I want to go over some methods that are strongly recognized as some of the best ways to protect your work, especially when you ship it off, email it off, send it to someone, entrusting them to print it for you or for review. Probably wouldn't want to print something with a watermark. So the first thing that you want to take into account is what font are you using. In this watermark here, I'm using Times New Roman, and I don't think there is a font that is more common on every single computer than Times New Roman. One of the first things you may want to consider when you're creating a watermark is to use a font that is not common. So hit the websites that give out, that allow you to get free fonts, and find something that still looks professional, but that most people would not have. It makes it just a little bit more difficult for a person to create a selection from your of your watermark and try to erase it. The second thing is the orientation, where you place your watermark. Now, obviously, the first thing you want to consider is where to place it on your image so that it does not detract or ruin your image, but at the same time it is still visible. Well, one of the things that is strongly recommended is to give it a slight tilt. Angle it a little bit. Again, only you know what angle that you created this watermark on, and it's just one more step that someone will have to go to if they want to erase the watermark on your image. So that's the orientation aspect. The next one would be location. Where can you put it on your image so it can do the most serve the most use and protect your image the best? Well, without giving away some of the devious secrets on removing watermarks, I will say this: place it in your image. Now this is for protection. Place it in your image in areas that have high contrast. So the contrast between the castle and my sky is very high. The contrast between the foliage here and my sky is very high. So in taking into account where I want to put my watermark, one, for high contrast, and two, to make it as difficult as possible for a person to use a cloning tool, I'm going to put it right up here because it covers my sky, it covers my foliage, and it covers over the castle. So if I were to post this on the internet in a large format, and I would want to protect it, this would be where I would put it because it would serve the greatest amount of protection. The last place I would put it would be here, because all of this area here is identical. It's all foliage. And probably in 2 minutes or less I could take a clone brush and just clone all of this away, leaving little, if any, evidence behind that there was a watermark here and that I had erased it. Now, it is true, we're going to go through some steps here to create a foolproof watermark, but I have to right up front say that there is no security system that is foolproof. Anything can be circumvented. But the intention here is to create a watermark so that if someone is going to go through the work of removing it, we're going to make it as difficult for them as possible in an attempt to deter them from spending all that time. Most thieves look for something that's easy to obtain. They are opportunists. If they have to go through great extents to get what they want, they will skip it and they'll go on to something easier to obtain. So there is no foolproof way to completely protect your work, unless you just leave it on your hard drive and never show it to anybody, never post it on the internet. But we're going to go through some steps here to make it as difficult as possible for some no good would-be thief who's out to steal your image and profit from it or make it his own. First thing I want to do is, the white color is okay, but the first thing I want to do is I want to click and bring up my layer styles here. And I'm going to add a bevel and emboss. Now you can play around with the styles here, find something that you like, but I'm just going to leave it on the default here. Maybe I'll increase the depth and the size of it a little bit. Probably not too much. And I'm going to click on stroke. And let's give this a color that is already in my image that would make it look good. So I'm going to click on that and let's see what I got. That looks okay. I'm going to click on it again and now let's give it an outer glow. Just a slight little outer glow so that any would-be thief has to go through one more step in removing this watermark, especially if he wants to create selections from it using, say, the magic wand tool. We're just going to make it that much more difficult for him. There we are. Okay. Now, you'd probably be tempted to use the opacity and bring the opacity down. Unfortunately, what that does is it brings the opacity of the entire layer down. A better way is to bring the fill opacity down, and you can bring it down all the way to 0 if you like, or add just a little bit of color in there, because now you can still see your image through it, and it believe it or not, it is very difficult to still make a selection from this, especially if you, let me add a little bit more white in here. Add a little bit of white in there. It makes it very difficult to create a selection from this. Now what I think I'll do is, let me close this tabbed group. I will lower the opacity of my fill, of my stroke a little bit, because it's just a little bit too much. And the outer glow, I think I'll lower the opacity of that down. And the bevel and emboss, let's bring some of those shadows down just a little bit. And so now we have a watermark that is very difficult to make a selection from and try to duplicate. Here's another suggestion. Somewhere in here, choose a letter and then choose a different font for that letter. If you choose one that looks similar but is not the same, it makes it a little bit more difficult for some would-be thief to steal your work. Now, once you've gone through the process of creating this, what I would recommend you do is group it all, merge it all as a layer, and then try yourself to get rid of it. See how easy it is in some areas and see how difficult it is in other areas when using like your spot healing brush, this Band-Aid, the healing brush, the patch tool, and your clone tool. See what's easy and what's difficult. I guarantee you the areas that are of highest contrast will be the most difficult. And also try grabbing your magic selection tool and try making some selections from your watermark and try getting rid of it, and you will see that it will be very difficult. And if it is easy and you are able to defeat this little security measure, then you need to go and make some adjustments to your watermark and find out what will make it more difficult, or where you can place your watermark to make it more difficult to circumvent your security measure. So that's creating as safe as possible watermark in Photoshop, and you can exercise the same techniques in whether it's GIMP, Photoshop, Paintbrush Pro, etc., even Painter. So I hope this tutorial has been of great benefit for you in protecting all your hard work. They're your renders. You spent the time in creating them, and if you spend just a few moments creating a secure watermark, you can protect your investment. So thanks for watching this tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name's Gary Miller. Have a good day.